In the beginning there was a promise that echoed in the hearts of Abraham, Isaac, and Rebekah, a promise that spanned generations, like a golden thread woven by the hand of God himself. Rebekah, barren for years, cried out to the Lord, and he heard her plea. In her womb 2 nations struggled, 2 peoples fought to be born. And thus, as it is written in Genesis 25:23, the Lord said to her, and the day arrived. Rebekah gave birth to 2 boys. The first came out red, his body covered in hair like a garment, and they named him Esau. Then his brother came out, holding Esau's heel, and they named him Jacob. Jacob, the supplanter, the one who grasps the heel. From the very first moment, he was already reaching for something greater, something that did not belong to him. But did he understand the weight of his destiny? Esau was a man of the field, a skilled hunter, loved by Isaac. Jacob, on the other hand, was a quiet man, preferring to dwell in tents. The contrast between them was striking, and their rivalry grew stronger with each passing day. Esau, the firstborn, carried the right of the birthright, a sacred inheritance. But Jacob had a plan. One day Esau returned from the field exhausted and famished. Jacob was cooking a lentil stew. The aroma was irresistible, and Esau, desperate, begged for a portion. Jacob, cunning as ever, saw an opportunity. "Sell me your birthright today," he said. Esau, disregarding what was sacred, replied, "I am about to die. What good is the birthright to me?" And so, for a mere bowl of lentils, Esau sold his birthright. Jacob, the supplanter, had taken the first step. But that act did not go unnoticed. The seed of discord was sown, and Esau's heart filled with hatred. Jacob, however, moved forward, carrying the weight of his choice. He knew that God's promise was upon him, but did he fully trust the Lord? Or was he trying to control his own destiny? The years passed, and Isaac, now old and with weakened eyesight, felt that his end was near. It was time to bless his firstborn son, Esau. But Rebekah, who had never forgotten the words of the Lord, knew that the blessing was meant for Jacob. She devised a bold plan, one that would forever change the destiny of the family. While Esau went out to hunt and prepare a feast for his father, Rebekah called Jacob. "Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats," she said. "I will prepare a tasty stew for your father, just the way he likes it. You will take it to him, and he will bless you before he dies." Jacob hesitated. He knew the risk was great, but his desire for the blessing spoke louder. Rebekah acted quickly. She covered Jacob's hands and neck with the skin of the young goats so that he would feel hairy like Esau. She dressed him in his brother's clothes, which carried the scent of the fields. Disguised, Jacob entered Isaac's tent. "My father," he called out hesitantly. "Who are you, my son?" Isaac asked, confused. "I am Esau, your firstborn," Jacob replied. "I have done as you told me. Get up, eat of my game, and bless me." Still suspicious, Isaac asked his son to come closer. As he touched Jacob's hands, he felt the rough texture of the goat's skin. "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's," he murmured. And, so deceived, Isaac blessed Jacob. When Esau returned from the field and discovered what had happened, his fury was indescribable. "Jacob has deceived me twice," he cried. "First he took my birthright, and now he has stolen my blessing." Esau swore revenge, vowing to kill his brother as soon as the mourning for Isaac's death was over. Rebekah, realizing the danger, called Jacob. "Flee to Haran, to the house of my brother Laban," she said. "Stay there for a while until your brother's anger subsides." Jacob, now a fugitive, prepared to leave. Jacob departed alone, carrying the weight of his choices. At sunset, he stopped in a desolate place, placed a stone as a pillow, and fell asleep. That night in solitude, God revealed himself to him in a dream. Jacob saw a ladder reaching to heaven, with angels ascending and descending upon it. At the top of the ladder stood the Lord, who said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your descendants. Your offspring shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. In you and in your descendants all the families of the earth shall be blessed. Behold, I am with you. And I will keep you wherever you go and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you." Jacob awoke, frightened. "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it," he said. He took the stone he had used as a pillow, set it up as a pillar and poured oil on it, consecrating the place. He called it Bethel, meaning house of God. Jacob continued his journey to Haran, where he met his uncle Laban. He fell in love with Rachel, Laban's younger daughter, and agreed to work for 7 years to have her as his wife. But Laban, as cunning as Jacob, deceived him. On the wedding night, he gave him Leah, the older daughter, instead. Outraged, Jacob confronted Laban, but his uncle replied, "It is not our custom to give the younger before the firstborn." Jacob agreed to work another 7 years for Rachel. And so he began to reap the consequences of his own cunning, learning that deceit can also lead to being deceived. Jacob fulfilled his word. He worked for 7 long years for Rachel, and those years seemed to him but a few days, so great was his love for her. But when the wedding day arrived, Laban, the master of cunning, deceived Jacob once again. In the dark of night, he gave him Leah, the elder daughter, instead of Rachel. When Jacob discovered the deception, he confronted Laban. "Why have you deceived me?" he asked, his voice filled with pain and indignation. Laban, unmoved, replied, "It is not done this way here. The younger is not given before the firstborn." Jacob, now caught in his own web, agreed to work another 7 years for Rachel, and so he began to understand that cunning does not always bring victory. Leah and Rachel, the 2 wives of Jacob, became rivals. Leah, though less loved, was blessed with children, while Rachel remained barren. Leah gave birth to Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, while Rachel, desperate, gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob, who also had children with her. Not wanting to be left behind, Leah did the same with her servant Zilpah. Jacob's household was full of children, but also of conflicts and jealousy. Divided between his wives and his children, Jacob began to feel the weight of his choices. After 14 years of labor, Jacob decided it was time to leave. He asked Laban for permission to return to his homeland, but Laban, realizing that God's blessing was upon Jacob, begged him to stay. "If I have found favor in your eyes, stay with me," Laban said. "I have learned that the Lord has blessed me because of you." Jacob agreed to stay but proposed a new deal. He would take all the speckled and spotted sheep, while Laban would keep the white ones. Thinking he was getting the better end of the bargain, Laban agreed. But Jacob, using his cunning once more, placed peeled branches before the sheep, causing them to give birth to speckled and spotted offspring. Thus Jacob's flocks grew rapidly, while Laban's diminished. Laban and his sons began to grumble against Jacob, saying he had grown wealthy at their expense. Jacob realized the atmosphere was becoming hostile and heard the voice of God saying to him, "Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you." Jacob gathered his wives, children, and flocks and departed secretly, while Laban was busy shearing his sheep. When Laban discovered their escape, he pursued Jacob for 7 days, finally catching up with him in the mountains of Gilead. But God appeared to Laban in a dream and warned him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." Fearing God, Laban confronted Jacob but dared not harm him. They made a covenant, set up a stone pillar, and swore not to harm each other. Jacob continued his journey, now closer to home. Jacob knew that the greatest challenge was yet to come, the reunion with Esau. He sent messengers ahead to announce his arrival. The response was terrifying. Esau was coming to meet him with 400 men. Fearing for his family's safety, Jacob divided his group into 2, so that if one was attacked, the other could escape. He prayed to God, crying out for protection. "Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau," he pleaded, "for I fear that he may come and strike me down, and the mother with the children." That night, Jacob was left alone, wrestling with himself and with God. He did not know that this struggle would change his life forever. That dark night, Jacob was alone by the brook of Jabbok. He knew that dawn would bring his encounter with Esau, and fear consumed him. But that night would not be like the others. As he wrestled with himself, a man appeared and began to struggle with him. It was an intense physical and spiritual battle. Determined, Jacob did not let the man go. "I will not let you go unless you bless me," he said firmly. The man asked, "What is your name?" Jacob replied, "Jacob." "Then," the man declared, "you shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed." Jacob, now called Israel, realized that he had wrestled with God himself. He named that place Peniel, saying, "I have seen God face to face, and my life has been spared." At dawn, Jacob arose and prepared for his meeting with Esau. He divided his family into groups, placing the servant women and their children in front, followed by Leah and her children, and finally Rachel and Joseph. He himself went ahead, bowing 7 times as he approached Esau. But to his surprise, Esau ran to meet him and embraced him. The 2 brothers wept together, and Esau asked, "Who are these with you?" Jacob replied, "These are the children whom God has graciously given your servant." Moved by reconciliation, Esau insisted that Jacob keep his gifts. But Jacob pleaded, "No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, accept my gift. For I have seen your face as if I had seen the face of God, and you have accepted me." Esau agreed and departed in peace. Jacob continued his journey and arrived at Shechem, where he purchased a piece of land and pitched his tent. He built an altar and called it El Elohe Israel, which means God, the God of Israel. There he settled his family and began to live in peace. But peace would not last forever. Dinah, his daughter, was violated by the son of Shechem's governor, and her brothers Simeon and Levi took brutal revenge, killing all the men of the city. Jacob, horrified, rebuked his sons, but the damage was already done. He knew that his family could no longer remain in Shechem. God spoke to Jacob again. "Arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there, and make an altar there to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." Jacob obeyed and commanded his family to purify themselves and surrender all the foreign gods they possessed. They buried the idols under the great tree in Shechem and departed for Bethel. There, Jacob built an altar, and God appeared to him, again reaffirming the change of his name to Israel and renewing the promise that his descendants would be numerous and blessed. Jacob's journey continued, but not without sorrow. Rachel, his beloved wife, died while giving birth to their second son, Benjamin. Devastated, Jacob buried her on the way to Ephrath and set up a pillar over her grave. He continued his journey and finally arrived at the home of his father, Isaac, in Hebron. Isaac, already old, lived a few more years and died in peace, being buried by his 2 sons, Esau and Jacob. Jacob, now called Israel, was back in his land, but his journey was far from over. Jacob, now called Israel, had grown old. He had lived a life full of ups and downs, struggles and blessings. His family had grown, and his 12 sons were the foundation of what would become the 12 tribes of Israel. But life still had challenges in store for him. His favorite son, Joseph, had been sold as a slave by his brothers, and Jacob believed he was dead. Jacob's heart carried a deep sorrow, but he did not know that God was working behind the scenes, preparing an ending he could never have imagined. Years passed and a great famine struck the land. Jacob sent his sons to Egypt in search of food. There they encountered Joseph, who had become the governor of Egypt, but they did not recognize him. After testing his brothers, Joseph revealed his identity. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt," he said. The brothers, filled with fear and remorse, heard Joseph's words of forgiveness. "Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Joseph sent for his father, and when Jacob learned that Joseph was alive, he exclaimed, "It is enough, my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." Jacob set out for Egypt with his entire family. On the way, God appeared to him in night visions and said, "Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for I will make you into a great nation there. I will go down with you to Egypt, and I will surely bring you back again." Trusting in God's promise, Jacob arrived in Egypt and was received with honors by Pharaoh. He lived in Egypt for 17 years, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, witnessing God's blessings upon his family. As his death approached, Jacob called his sons to bless them. Each son received a unique blessing that reflected his character and future. Judah, for instance, was given the promise that the scepter would not depart from his tribe, a prophecy pointing to the Messiah. Joseph, the beloved son, received a special blessing, confirming his position of honor. Jacob also requested to be buried in the cave of Machpelah, where his ancestors rested. He died in peace, knowing that his descendants would be great and blessed. And so we come to the end of Jacob's story, a man who wrestled with God and with men and prevailed. His life teaches us that even amid our failures and struggles, God is in control, working all things for the good of those who love him. If you relate to Jacob's journey, if you also seek transformation in your life, remember, God is always by your side, ready to bless and guide you. And if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more inspiring narratives like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to receive updates on our upcoming videos. We have many more powerful stories to share with you. Leave a comment below telling us which biblical character you would like us to feature next. See you next time. And remember, your story can also be transformed by the power of God.